Well, let's do it.
Did that come through?
Welcome everyone to ISIS Parenting's Sleep Support Webinar and Chat. My name is Nancy Holtzman. I'm a mom and baby nurse educator, board certified lactation consultant, and board certified in pediatrics. I am the Vice President of Clinical Content and Online Learning here at ISIS Parenting, and I am sitting in our home office outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where we have 4 centers in the greater Boston area. We also just opened 4 centers in Atlanta area, and we are in the process this week of opening 5 centers in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. And in fact, on Thursday, I will be traveling to Dallas and seeing those centers up and running firsthand. I'm very excited to see that. And who knows, help us make ISIS a big success, and we will come to a city near you soon. I am the mom of 2 teenagers. In fact, my daughter Julia, who's 18, just graduated high school yesterday. That's a milestone. She was 33 and a half weeks and 3.5 pounds when she was born. And they do grow and they do thrive. And then my son Toby turned 16 yesterday as well. So yesterday was a big day in our house, in our lives. With me today, as she is every Tuesday at 12 noon, is my friend and colleague Megan Casano, who is also a registered nurse, sleep support team leader here at ISIS, and the mother of 4 beautiful little girls. Meg, would you like to start today?
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Thanks for joining, everyone. So we decided to circle back to talking about naps today, which is always a really popular topic and a really popular webinar that people frequently go back and listen to or re-listen to as their babies grow and ages and stages change. So hopefully you will find some great information, and I'll have time to answer some of your specific questions. If you are new to the sleep webinars, or if you're listening in at a later time, be sure to access our sleep webinar archives and take a look at some of the foundational webinars that we've recorded for you. You may hear me say that, trying to solve a sleep problem, just like in a vacuum, doesn't work on its own. It does really have to be combined with all the other components that go into making up good sleep for your baby. So things like making sure your baby's schedule is appropriate, you've got a bedtime routine that cues your baby appropriately. If you have to work on any transitions, such as maybe on the path to independent sleep, if you're trying to make some changes in that way, having a great sleep environment. So there are a whole bunch of helpful webinars that you can sort of start off with to lay the foundation for then actually solving the problem that you need to right now. And so, here's our little plug for what's the big deal about naps anyway? Why should I even work on them? The bottom line is naps are really healthy. They are both mentally and physically restorative for your baby, toddler, or even early preschooler. It's quite well researched that children benefit greatly from a nap up to at least age 3. Many kids do continue to benefit greatly from a nap even past that age. So naps are something to really work on protecting, preserving, improving. The type of sleep that your baby is in during nap sleep is predominantly a REM sleep, which is where basically it's a ton of information processing, learning, memory consolidation. There's a whole lot that's going on in your baby's little brain during a nap. And so it's really helpful that they do have really quality naps during the day. Of course, it'll improve your baby's mood, attention span, adaptability when you're trying to solve a problem, whether it be at night or during the day. Having good sleep on board is always going to help with the learning that you're trying to accomplish. So when we do a nap consult, which we do very frequently, the most common problems that we see are either nap initiation problems, meaning baby's having trouble falling to sleep on his own, or nap duration problems. In other words, baby's having trouble putting those sleep cycles together. So you might be able to easily rock your baby to sleep and even transfer your baby into a separate sleep surface, but then he might pop up 40 minutes later. So that would be a really common problem. Or you're just having a ton of trouble actually getting your baby to fall asleep in the first place. Many babies also have a little bit of both of these things going on. And so the goal of beginning a nap intervention is to teach your baby how to fall asleep independently, so that when your baby wakes after a sleep cycle, which is very normal. I mean, I expect your baby to pop up after a sleep cycle during the day. We want him to then know how to go back to sleep and do another one, or maybe two more, depending on the age and how much daytime sleep your particular baby needs. Okay, so when you begin a nap improvement plan, I want to just emphasize, if those of you who might have popped in a little later, or those of you who might be coming back to re-listen to this at a later date and skip through some slides, it's really important that you start a nap improvement plan when your baby is really able to learn from it. And so what that means is you wouldn't want to start anything really official, formal, until your baby's at least 5.5 months from due date. Now, I understand, like, I know we've got Megan from Atlanta with a 3-week-old, we've got Emily with 4-month-old twins, and you might be thinking, oh great, well, what does that mean for me? There are lots of things that you can do with younger babies. We do have webinars recorded from the first 4 months, talking about what to do about nap pop-ups, how to soothe through sleep cycles, lots and lots of things that you can still be working on for babies who are under 5.5 months, for sure. This, what I'm going to be talking about going forward, the actual how do you do a nap intervention to solve your baby's sleep like now. For this, we are talking about babies who are 5.5 months from due date. So I just want to make that clear in this webinar. When you're going to begin a nap improvement plan, you want to be sure you're starting when your baby has a regular morning wake-up time. You might need to spend sort of a phase 1, I sometimes call it, of a nap plan to establish a regular morning wake-up time. I realize I love how Nancy likes to say sleep is a division of labor. You can't make your baby sleep, but you can provide the time, place, and environment. And so I understand that you might have a morning that's earlier than you hoped, but you can control what time you're turning on lights, what time you're getting up and playing, what time you're having that morning feeding. So you can control sort of the other external sleep cues and when you're going to start your baby's day in that way. So establishing a morning wake-up time is helpful. We do also have a webinar recorded on 2 early wake-ups. So if that's a trouble spot for your baby, you could go listen to that webinar as well. You want to start your nap work when your baby's night sleep is well consolidated. I don't mean perfect. I don't mean your baby has to be sleeping through the night. Your baby may still be waking up for 1 or even 2 feedings. Your baby could still be having a nice night of sleep, even if they are waking up a couple of times to eat. As long as the sleep is well consolidated on either sides of those feeding. If you're doing bed sharing, if that's your choice as a family, your baby might be waking up frequently to snack, but it might not be interrupting your baby's sleep at all because they're really not rousing themselves into a full wake pattern if you're right there in bed with them. So the point is, if you feel like, okay, I've got a pretty regular schedule, regular bedtime, regular wake time, and my baby really seems like he's starting the day from a well-rested standpoint, that's when you can work on your naps. We typically don't recommend that you do night work and nap work at the same time, because sometimes when you're trying to make a change and improvement, sometimes things actually sort of, the day sleep might actually decrease a little bit, or the night sleep might decrease a little bit when you're working on an intervention before it then rebounds and gets better again. And because babies can compartmentalize their day sleep from their night sleep, they're really good at doing that. You can actually work on days while you're sort of leaving your nights alone. Or on the flip side, you could work on your nights while you're sort of leaving your naps alone. So be sure your baby's got a good night going on when you begin your nap intervention. It's also helpful if you start a nap intervention when you've noticed some patterns. And I do recommend that you make some real attempts with your baby at consistency. And even if that means, hey, my baby's totally hooked on rocking or bouncing or riding in the car, that's fine. You can use your sleep associations to start establishing some patterns. And so if that means going for a walk at the same time every morning, or afternoon, or going for a ride in the car, or nursing your baby to sleep at the same time each morning, do those kinds of things to get some sort of pattern going on that will help you feel more confident that the time you're going to be asking your baby to sleep is the time your baby really can sleep. You can also do things like if your baby's been falling asleep in a stroller, or if you've been holding your baby and sort of sitting on the couch and watching a show, can you move into your baby's place of sleep environment, so your baby's getting used to sleeping in the right room, under the right environment, the right environmental circumstances. And then the last change you would have to make is the sleep association, the independent sleep. I strongly recommend tracking your baby's sleep, watching for patterns. In our individual sleep consults, we use a great sleep assessment that gives you a really nice visual, provides you with a ton of information at a glance. So whether you are tracking on an app on your phone, or you're just making a spreadsheet or just writing things down, I strongly recommend doing that as you're going through a nap intervention. And then a note too, when you do decide you're ready to try to make a real change, you'll do your nap intervention for nap 1 and nap 2. And again, I want to make this part really clear. Nap number 3, you don't do a formal nap intervention. I'll explain more what that means. But if your baby is having a nap 3, like a 6-month-old, 7-month-old might be, you don't have the same expectations for that nap. But that's the nap. If you've got to, run an errand or pick up an older child and they fall asleep in the car, it's not the end of the world. Nap number 3 is a self-correcting problem, because that nap will go away as your baby gets older, or as naps number 1 and number 2 improve with your intervention. So you are sort of, nap number 3 is always sort of a little more, as your baby needs it, and with not quite the what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite the strict guidelines the way I'll be talking about for nap 1 and nap 2. I don't know if strict is the right word, but I think hopefully you'll see what I'm talking about as we go through this more. Okay, so when you begin a nap plan, as far as your expectations, you do want to expect a 7 to 10 day minimum, depending on the type of plan that you're going to end up doing. In other words, the type of intervention or response that you'll be doing with your baby could extend that more. For example, if you're choosing to do a slower plan with a greater amount of soothing, it would take more time for you to see a change resulting. Part of that is due to the nature of the daytime sleep. But that's, for a lot of families, that's okay, because it's much easier for you to be consistent and sort of work on something more long-term at, say, 1 o'clock in the afternoon than it would be at, say, 3 o'clock in the morning. So, just to sort of manage expectations a little bit, usually your first 5 days of a nap plan, you feel like nothing's happening. You want to email me, or you want to tweet to Nancy and say, oh my gosh, nothing's happening. And we'll say, you got to keep going. Usually it's days 5 through 10 that you start to see things coming together for your baby. That's normal. We expect that. And then just that last reminder, because babies are so good at compartmentalizing day sleep from night sleep, and caregivers like daycare sleep from home sleep, you can work on daytime napping separately from nighttime sleep. Okay, so here are the sort of the step-by-step, how do you do a nap intervention? The first thing is always going to be your timing. You want to have regular morning wake-up time. You want to make sure that the schedule that you're asking your baby to now be napping on is appropriate for her age. So you might want to take a look at the Sleep and Nap Patterns webinar by age that we have recorded to make sure that your timing is right. you might be in a position of having to wake your baby. Parents usually ask this. The only time you would want to wake your baby would really be to protect your regular bedtime. So if you if you're familiar with our webinars, I know many of you are, or if you're going to be going back and listening to some, you know that your baby's sleep is controlled by their circadian rhythm and their sleep pressure. The circadian rhythm is, this complicated hormonally driven system, and it does best with regularity. And so you really want to be sure that during the time you're doing a nap intervention, your baby continues to have a nice regular bedtime within about the same 30-minute window, and a nice regular wake time within about the same 30-minute window. The only exception to that would be if during your first few days of a nap intervention, your baby's getting quite a bit less sleep than usual and seems particularly overtired. You certainly may go earlier with your bedtime to help compensate for lost day sleep and to prevent the accumulation of sleep debt. That is always going to be fine. But in general, you are trying to protect the regularity of your bedtime. And so if you were having a long, late nap and you knew it was going to start to bump your bedtime too late, that would be a situation where you would actually want to wake your baby. It's sort of like a domino. You're always looking 1 or 2 steps ahead of your baby. If your morning nap is going so long that it's going to then push your afternoon nap really late and it's going to push your bedtime really late, that again might be a situation where you would wake your baby. Remember that we are talking about babies who are at least 5.5 months from due date. And so at this age, you also might consider waking your baby from any nap lasting more than 3 hours. Most babies at this age are doing 3 to 3.5 hours of day sleep. That's average. And so if one single nap is lasting more than 3 hours, you're almost kind of meeting your baby's quota for the day. If you then add on another 4-hour nap plus, and you're bringing your baby's sleep total up to 4+ hours, you may then start to cut into your baby's night sleep. And some parents don't want to do that. So just something else to think about in terms of length of the nap. And I know you're probably laughing like, oh, haha, I would love to see a 3-hour nap, but sometimes it starts to happen. Okay, so step number 2, step number 1 is your timing. Step number 2 is your location. Let me just go back to and clarify with timing too. Just when you're doing your intervention, you are going to try to be as regular as you can with your timing each day. Okay, for your baby's sleep location, during your nap intervention, so at least 7 to 10 days, depending on the type of interaction you're doing with your baby, you want to have your baby sleeping in a consistent location for the duration of your plan. With the exception, like maybe your baby's with a grandma for a few days or at a home daycare for a few days. Sometimes things like that happen, and sometimes it can work really well. It does sort of depend a little bit on the uniqueness of your situation and the quality of the environment and the ability of the caregiver to be consistent. So sometimes that's a nuance that is better worked through in an individual consult. During this time, you want to avoid cat naps and naps on the go. So in other words, it might actually mean rearranging the time you run an errand, or maybe you get help with pickups and drop-offs that week for an older child. If your baby has a little 10-minute power snooze in the car, it will affect what you're then going to try to ask him to do, say in his crib an hour later. So you want your baby getting consistent a message as you can, so do avoid cat naps and little, mini naps or mini snoozes in between the real, improved naps that you're trying to establish. Again, the only possible exception would be, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It made me remember driving my kids and praying that they would not fall asleep because I didn't want it to be like a bedtime sabotage type nap. That 15
Right.
minutes driving home from school or something like that. And I remember I would try to talk to them, keep them engaged, sing, make them sing an interactive song. Like I would sing Old MacDonald and ask them to say what animal, or keep handing the older baby a toy, poking them in the leg. I don't know. How do you keep your baby away from the car when
Uh,
you know that they're going to fall asleep?
Yeah, and I deal with this a lot because of all my pickups and drop-offs, all different places. First, I have to say, drive safely, please, drive safely. But yeah, bringing a super fun toy, something different, like a kitchen utensil, like a like a piece of Tupperware or something like that. I find snacks for my kids. My kids love snacks, so I find if your baby's old enough to have a snack or a little smoothie on the go, that could help. Otherwise, yep, music, roll down the windows, have older kids distract, play clapping games, all those kinds of things are good. If your baby's sleep pressure is just so darn high, that's the sleepiness at some point. I mean, they might just crash. And if it happens, it happens, but do your best. I mean, prevention and avoidance is always going to be the best strategy when you're in a nap intervention. Okay, so now you're on to your room environment. When you're going to ask your baby to make an improvement, make a change, you are giving your baby as many tools for success as you possibly can. So you want your baby's napping environment to be ideal, which means it's cool, it's dark, and it's quiet. You might want to check out our Cool, Dark, and Quiet webinar for real specifics and details about what that means. Summertime now, so using fans, room ACs, or central air is probably going to be essential. Darkness, you want your baby's room to be dark enough that you cannot read. And quiet. Remember that nap sleep is mostly REM sleep. That type of sleep has a lower threshold for arousal due to external noise. So running a continuous white noise machine to block out some of that background noise is going to be really helpful, if not essential. All right, and finally, before you get to the real intervention, you make sure you have a nice, predictable little mini pre-nap routine for your baby. This could be an abbreviated version of what you're doing at nighttime. Remember that babies are very good at compartmentalizing sleep, so different caregivers might be doing different types of things. As long as everybody is on the same page in terms of doing some soothing steps, cueing baby, doing some similar sort of wind down routines. Pre-nap routines are generally between 5 and 15 minutes. Just do give your baby long enough time to kind of transition. Like if you're kind of going all morning, give your baby just a little bit of time to sort of transition between that and the time you want them to actually fall asleep. Okay, and so if you have done all of those steps leading up to this final, okay, what do I do now? I have a great environment. I have a regular wake time. I have some predictability. I have a nap time routine, and my baby is still having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. Now you can layer on a nap intervention. The first most common way to do this is the challenge option that we like to call it. And this will be a 60-minute challenge for your baby's morning nap and a 60 to 90-minute challenge for your baby's afternoon nap. We say the 60 to 60-minute challenge in the afternoon is great, 90 minutes at your discretion. And so what that means is after an hour, you kind of see how are you feeling, how is your baby feeling, do you think if you tried for 10 more minutes, your baby might fall asleep? Great, go ahead. But that, additional time in the afternoon is at your discretion. So what this means is in the morning, when you've had your regular wake up time and it's getting to be your baby's morning nap time, you will do your steps leading up to sleep. Like you'll cue your baby with the bedtime routine. You'll have your great sleep environment. You'll have your white noise on. And you will actually have your baby spend 1 hour in their nap environment. Okay, now what you do during that hour is very modifiable. We have all different options for families. Now, if some of you are familiar with some of the sleep interventions that we offer, like trading down sleep associations, you might be working on transitioning away from nursing to sleep. We have a webinar recorded on that. You might prefer something that's a little faster variety. Some of you listening, I know I've talked to you about some faster strategies that we have. This is always personal and individualized for each each family. But the bottom line is your baby's little body stays in the nap environment for 60 minutes. If it takes your baby 20 minutes to fall asleep, and then she sleeps for 30 minutes, now you're in it for 50. If your baby pops up after the 30-minute mark, you would still have 10 minutes to go. And during that final 10 minutes, you would continue to do whatever intervention you had chosen and felt comfortable doing until you had completed the full hour spent in your baby's room. Same in the afternoon. If when you've completed your hour in the morning, and even if your baby didn't end up with an awesome nap, that's okay. As you get ready for your baby's second nap time, you again repeat the same process, the bedtime routine, the environment, and your baby spends another hour, up to 90 minutes max at your discretion, in a sleep environment, again with you doing your intervention of choice. These challenge options, again, always includes higher or lower soothing options. But again, remember that the less soothing you do, the faster, more predictable results within those 7 to 10 days. More soothing you do, it will be longer. But again, that might be fine with you, because you're awake and maybe able to be a little more patient and consistent. Some important notes about this that parents often ask. Yes, your baby is allowed to sleep more than 60 to 90 minutes. Absolutely. It's just that there doesn't seem to be added benefit to trying more than 60 to 90 minutes. You could spend all day sometimes and you have to take breaks. You have to get out, do something, play. So if your baby has not slept at all after 60 minutes, go ahead, call it off, do something fun. But here's the catch. If you have a young baby under 8 months, your baby can't and shouldn't withstand huge amounts of sleep pressure. So if your baby just nixed the first nap entirely, then you're going to watch your baby for a retry. You might need to retry that nap again, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour later. At that point, though, you've been keeping an eye on your baby. They're so tired, their sleep pressure is so high that they will fall asleep. And when they do, you want it to be under the conditions that you're trying to reinforce, perhaps in their crib, perhaps it's in your arms if you're trying to change a nursing to sleep association. Again, it would be according to where you are on your path to independent sleep. If you have an older baby, over 8 months old, your baby can withstand greater amounts of sleep pressure. And so if your baby ditched the morning nap or took an especially short morning nap during this intervention, you are going to kind of watch the clock too. And so you have your sort of ideal schedule in your mind. And so you might actually sort of push your baby closer to that second nap time. For example, if you hoped your baby was going to nap around 8:30 in the morning and then again around 12:30 in the afternoon, you might be able to get your baby as close to 11:45 or 12 before napping her and having the attempt the 60 to 90 minute challenge for the second nap. She probably won't make it all the way to what you hoped would be your second nap time, but you can at least get a little closer than you could with, say, a 6-month-old. Here again, only wake your baby if you need to protect the end result of your bedtime. Try not to have those little cat naps or mini snoozes in between. And if you're feeling like 60 minutes or even, forget about 90 minutes, 60 minutes is going to be really hard for me, you can do some challenge time limit modifications. For example, to get your feet wet, if you feel like you can just do 20 minutes, that's okay. Just start there. Watch for progress, take careful notes, see if you can build up from there. The second approach would be the delayed pickup option. This does tend to be yes, a little slower, yes, a little less effective, but it's more interactive, and so for some families it's more appealing. The catch here with this strategy is that this is for babies who can already initiate sleep. So this would be for a baby whose problem is nap maintenance, like putting more than one sleep cycle together. So this is pretty simple. If your baby falls asleep and pops up at, say, the 40-minute mark after their sleep cycle, On the first day, you might delay getting up and playing for 5 minutes. Again, what you're doing during that 5 minutes is personal to each family. Some families would choose to stay out for 5 minutes. Some families would choose to do some sort of trading down sleep associations for 5 minutes, or a crib side soothing. Whether you're doing an in-room strategy or an out-of-room strategy or a little bit of both, that's where the individualized sleep consult can really help fine-tune things for you. But you keep going through your week. Day 2, your baby has fallen asleep, stayed asleep for probably their single sleep cycle, and you might delay pickup on day 2 or delay play on day 2 for 10 minutes. You keep going. Each day you're delaying a little more, a little more. So in other words, you're sort of reducing that incentive to pop up and play after one sleep cycle. You continue doing this for 7 to 10 days, perhaps longer, depending on your response. But with a max time of 60 to 90 minutes spent in the crib. Okay, so in other words, it's not like you're going to increase your delays. 20 minutes doesn't become 40 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. You don't increase that much. You increase up to a maximum of 60 to 90 minutes time spent in the crib or time spent in the room. Okay, so that is your nap intervention sort of in a nutshell. A lot of information there about the schedule, the timing, the environment, the cat naps, and finally the challenge option or the delayed pickup option. Of course, if you need fine-tuning about what do I do during my challenge option or what do I do when I'm delaying pickups, we're always happy to help walk you through that with an individual sleep consult. But I don't know, I think there's a lot of really great information here. So I'm hoping that you all found this really helpful, and that this will get you on your way to some great naps.
I think so. I think so. As we grow that list of sleep webinars, it's almost tricky. It's almost like a menu where you want to say, pick 2 from column A and then your entree, and then you also need to check out these side dishes here because they're going to be relevant too. So you have to fold in like the environment webinar or the timing webinar. And I think sometimes it is hard for parents to kind of navigate and figure out, well, where do I start? So I always suggest, because there's a lot of new people here, starting with the sleep and nap patterns by age and stage. So find the sleep and nap patterns webinar that fits the age of your child. And then if your baby is very young, the 6-week to 4-month webinar is also beneficial to help with getting babies into a rhythm of daytime and nighttime sleep and beginning to start working on naps. The webinar that we just finished recording today, this one focuses more on if you've decided you want to start establishing regular naps and begin to work on napping in cribs. And as Meg said, that's more in the 5.5 to 6 month time frame on up. Before that, you may need to help parent your child to sleep, and you may need to walk, hold, rock, bounce, swing. And I just answered a question this morning about this, that a mom with a 3-month-old was struggling with napping and the pop-up naps, the dreaded pop-up naps, and her baby would sleep for an hour and a half in the swing. So my suggestion was, don't fight it so much at 3 months if it's working and it's safe, but you can experiment with things like once a day, practice the nursing in the sleeping in the bassinet, and see if you can pat or shush down the baby. Continue swaddling if that's helpful. If your baby is sleeping in the swing, you could also try stopping the swing motion so that, step by step, they gradually begin to adjust that way. And if you're having trouble kind of figuring out which variety of sleep webinars you might watch to patch together a sleep program for yourself, you can ask us for suggestions. I'm on Twitter, of course. You can ask on our IsisParenting Facebook page, and of course you can just cut to the chase and get a sleep consult and have it be very personalized. We do them by phone, so that makes it easier. You can click like us on Facebook, and then that's where you can ask questions that I will end up seeing. I do recommend that you click this button, email newsletter, because those are age and stage related, and they come out every Tuesday morning at the crack of dawn. I hope you're not awake at that time, and that you probably are. And you'll find out all kinds of upcoming special events and things like that, and including special webinars. So you don't have to be local to Boston, Atlanta, or Dallas to take advantage of the various offerings that ISIS has. We are out of time, so I wanted to thank Meg very much for her expertise. And next week we are going to talk about the early weeks. So we need everybody to come back, share support for the moms with babies from birth to 6 weeks who are really struggling with sleep deprivation and that very fragmented sleep where baby won't sleep except, in your arms or at your breast. And also tell any expectant moms or moms with brand newborns, let them know that this will be our conversation for next week as well. Meg, did you have anything else that you wanted to add today before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm all set. Thanks, Nancy.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Again, please help us here at ISIS by spreading the word. Come back next week. Like us on Facebook so that you can get updates. Follow you. We have a blog. We have the newsletter, etc. And we hope to see you back on Thursday. Thursday at 12 noon is our breastfeeding webinar, and I'm traveling to Dallas, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, have a great week, everybody. Happy nurturing, and we'll see you back either Thursday or Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.